Welcome to Meeples on Meeples, episode 54. I'm Adam.
Andrew.
Patrick.
Ian.
Before we get into our game of the week this week, as usual, we'd like to invite you over to our website, meeplesonmeeples.com, where we put up all of our game of the weeks and our video reviews for each week, as well as ask you to follow us over on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+. And I think we even have a Pinterest account now, right?
Yeah, that's what I have.
Yeah. So we're branching out here.
For all of our ladies.
All of our ladies.
All three of you.
But check out those sites, follow us, keep up, interact with the community, and on Facebook especially, we like to put up questions every once in a while to get feedback from you guys, the viewers. So check us out there.
Tell us what you think. Today's game is Battlestar Galactica, the board game put out by Fantasy Flight, and this is a trader-themed game. And to go over the rules very quickly, at the beginning of the game, each person selects a specific type of character, and each character has a unique character reference card. And there are several themes. There's pilot, there's political, there's leadership, such as the military, and then of course there's a general individual who fixes things.
The support.
The support, thank you.
Yep, the one engineer.
This is based off of the new series of TV shows that has been on the Sci-Fi Channel over the last few years.
Kind of off topic, but if it was based on the older series, would that be kind of fun? Just
It would be
really
kind
bad art and everything.
Really bad art. And basically what happens is you each select a character at the beginning. The characters each have special abilities and a detraction. And also they have these little numbers down here which tells them special skill cards that they will be able to draw at the beginning of their turn. After you've selected your character and have drawn a series of skill cards, you are then handed one of these class cards. And there's two choices. You are a Cylon or you are not a Cylon. Now before the game begins, there's only a certain number of you are a Cylon cards in the deck. And that's dependent on how many players that you have. All the other cards are you are not a Cylon. When you get this card, you keep it a secret. If you are a Cylon, you're trying to stop the humans from completing their goals and getting to the planet Kobol. If you're the humans, you're trying everything in your power to manipulate your materials,
Your
resources, and to travel through space to get to Kobol. Now, on each player's turn, there are several actions you take. One is move, where you can move your character to another room on the same ship, or you can discard a skill card to move to a different ship and perform an action in one of those rooms. Once you've done your move action, then you can take, or your move part, then you can take an action. And each character can choose either an action from one of their skill cards, the action in the room itself, an action from their player card, or some characters get special cards like the Quorum card or an Admiral card that allows them special actions as well. You only can take one of those. After you're done with your action, then there's a crisis card, because the Cylons are always trying to attack the humans, stopping them from reaching their goal. And when you draw a crisis card, there are some negative effects. At the top, there is a number, and you have to pass that number or higher for you to have the less effect or for no effect.
That's called a skill check.
A skill check. If you fail the skill check, then bad things happen to you. Now, how you pass a skill check is this one's a skill check of 13, and it says that all the players can play cards, and you can play as many cards as you want. The ones that are yellow, green, and purple play towards the number. Any other colors, which would be red and blue, would play against the number. So, for example, if we played these cards, I have several reds, one green, and one yellow. Well, the green and the yellow count up as 4 towards the 13. All the reds would subtract from that score. So I have 8, 10. So I had 3 minus 10, I'm at a negative 7. That's obviously not high enough to pass the skill check, so they would fail it and the bad things would happen. After you're done with the skill check, at the very bottom of the card, there are 2 little corners. One corner says what the Cylons will do. In this case, the small... the small... No. The small... No. What are you doing to me?
I'm screwing you up. It's the bad guy ship.
Yeah. The Raiders.
There we go.
Thank you. Wow. Just jump in there and just throw me out. The Raiders, in this case, the small Raiders would attack if there's any on the board. And also there's a little thing called the jump. And the jump is you're trying to build up energy to take the next jump to the next planet or the next place in space to try to get you to Kobol. And believe it or not, just through each player's game, there is a lot of finger pointing as the Cylon is secretly playing cards to make missions fail. As the humans fail missions, their resources go down. And the Cylons win when either the resources are 0, any one resource is 0, Cylons board the ship, which can occur on different actions, or the entire Battlestar Galactica is destroyed. Humans only win if they manage their resources and can get to Kobol. And that's pretty much the game.
Wow. Yeah, it sounds very complicated, but it actually plays pretty smoothly. And why don't we start where we normally do with components on this one? I guess I'd start out, I think the components are pretty good. You know, you got the player mats, which we like. I'm a big fan of the board itself. The art style maybe isn't great because it does use pictures, I guess, from the show rather than, illustrations. So, I mean, if you like the tie to the show, that's nice. But I really like the way they do the resource management, how everything is on the board, and the resource management is done with these dials up here.
I enjoy that too. A lot of other games they tend to use like a token and a
counter,
grid.
yeah,
and they go up or down based on that. That's a whole lot harder, especially to kind of manage. This is really neat and clean.
You got this upper corner here, right here, basically tells you everything you need to know as far as how well you're doing.
Yeah, I sit on pretty much the opposite end of the board every single time, but it's really hard to actually see the numbers until I actually get up and I'm like, oh, I got to look at those. And
yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the only real downfall in that one. But
mini
still,
cards, not needed.
And you're jumping in on that already. Mini cards.
He dislikes the mini cards.
Mini cards.
And no, that's a Fantasy Flight.
I know
thing.
it is.
They
And
like the mini cards.
in some games, it is useful. In this game, I don't really see the usefulness of it.
I think it saves on space a little bit, but
I agree
not
with you.
really though.
I agree with you.
Not in this particular game.
Can I take a step back and talk about the color of the cards?
Yes, go ahead.
yeah. I mean, that's a.
I hate it. Honestly, I can't get past the fact that blue and purple are so close to colors.
And this gets to, for those of you who haven't watched before, Ian is colorblind.
Very
so.
colorblind.
For the rest of us, blue and purple isn't that bad. But if you're colorblind, I suppose.
They're very vibrant colors.
Red, and then I'm red-green brown colorblind, but it's for some reason the green and the yellow are really close to me on that one. And
I think you're pointing at the red there, actually.
This is red.
Oh yeah, whatever that one is.
The yellow does have a little bit of an orange tint.
Can we really just make colors the way
it
they're
does
supposed
have
to be
the
instead of
names
having
on them.
The mini cards do have the names, but they're really small print.
Yeah, and whatever. But it's that just why can't you just make colors bold? Why do you have to make it a textured background? Why do you have to fade it out? I get us we're looking at themes here, but really it's not that hard.
I'll go to as far as the miniatures they have miniatures, I guess, for the ships.
Yeah, the ships.
But for players, and this is kind of disappointing, I guess, from a Fantasy Flight game, is you don't get a miniature, you get basically a picture of the character from the TV show.
And that's why they did. This is really a tie-in for those people who like the TV show. So when you're playing the character...
I think they could have accomplished that. You got your player card, then give me a miniature that looks like my player card.
That's
you
really
still
hard
get the
to do.
picture.
That's really hard to do, though,
They
to
own
get
the
a
rights,
real
why not?
character, to get a real person to look like it. It's to get a 3D model. So this is just to give you an idea of who your character is. And so quickly, I can look at this and I know that's my character. If I had a miniature... We've talked about that before. When you have miniatures, it is hard to differentiate.
But if they're painted correctly,
why can't we do it? What about like a bust? Like it's exactly that, but just
that would increase the cost. That would increase the cost at that point.
I don't know. It's kind of disappointing to me. They did really, I think, nice miniatures for how tiny they are for the ships, but then they did. Like I say, it's just it's a portrait basically.
They also why give us a cardboard cutout for this dude? I mean, really, why can't we get a miniature on that too?
We could, and I'm guessing that was a cost decision too. They could have, and I would have liked that better.
Why do you keep defending the cost decision?
That's okay. I do like the fact that a couple of things. The cardboard here is, there's a lot of cardboard chits on this. They're decent cardboard. It's not that flimsy soft cardboard that breaks down and warps very easily. And the cards, there's a lot of card usage on here, and it is high quality cards. I mean,
like the plastic coating.
They didn't skimp out on that. So
artwork.
I'm kind of like I kind of said before.
50-50.
It's really not that great. I mean, it serves its purpose. I'm a bigger fan of the illustrated look versus the actual pictures, and I know why they did it. They bought the license. They're trying to really represent, Battlestar Galactica as what people currently know it as. So I get why they use the pictures, but even the art that they did do, the ship itself is pretty plain. I mean, it's essentially an oval with pictures on it.
Why they split the cartoony from the TV show? Why wouldn't they just go all TV show shots?
Yeah, I mean, they could have done that, and that might have been better.
They could have done that very easily, but I like the movie shots on it. I'm a fan of the television show.
You
I
look
like the
like
television
that.
show. Thanks.
Yeah,
Yeah, I do like the.
You
I'm a
fit
Cylon. So I like the movie. To me, that's one of the appeals of this is that it actually has the movie characters and it has the movie images.
And I
on
didn't
it.
think about it. I think Ian's hit it right on the head for me. Is the fact that it's split like that. The fact that it's illustrated versus pictures. I think if they'd gone all picture of the ship as the board, I would have been better with it.
Have you seen what the ship looks like?
Oh yeah,
It looks like that.
Well, no, it doesn't look like that, but it would be.
It doesn't look like
It'd be
that.
very.
So it's not accurate.
It would be very overwhelming with all the
Yeah,
pictures.
I
I think
get what
the
you're
detail.
saying.
I think the detail would get lost.
They break it down so it's a very simple board to look at.
Yeah, so you want a simple board to look at, so your attention is to the rooms and not necessarily to the ships that, in a way, don't matter that much other than just as a representative.
It's your player board, basically.
Yeah.
And how about anything else on components here?
One last thing I can say about this, to take off your things, if you ever seen Arkham Asylum, it's supposed to be a town, and they just have these little circles over the board. They could have done that with this, but instead they try to get all the buildings into a ship position too. Yeah. So it doesn't bother me that much.
How about strategy on this one? Probably where this game shines, I guess.
The strategy is if you're the Cylon, you don't want to let people know that you're a Cylon too early. Something that the humans can do to try to limit your ability is to put somebody who they think is a Cylon in the brig and keep them there. And that really, after a while, it really forces the Cylon, if he's going to do anything, to play his hand to get out. Because once he plays his hand, he can jump to the Cylon location and work from there. Otherwise, you're stuck there, and you can't do anything.
Pretty good job.
You had a good
from
hand.
the brig.
You had your hand still. He had nothing.
I was done. I couldn't. Once I got into the brig, I was out. And the funny thing is, when you put me into the brig, I was not a Cylon, which is a unique part of this. At the beginning, everyone can be humans. And everybody
just
was
gave off a Cylon vibe.
I was a human at first, and they put me in the brig, and then there's a point where you deal out another hand of cards, and somebody can secretly become a Cylon. And with that second hand of cards, I became a Cylon, and I'm like, screw this.
It could be that WD-40 cologne you've been wearing.
Oh, is that it?
Is
that kind of...
As far as...
and you talk like a robot?
Yeah.
Am I set up for binary?
Yes.
As far as the humans, because I was a human every time we played this, I don't know if it works too well for me, because I think you suspected me both games.
I was a Cylon the first game. I could care less.
As a human, though, it's your benefit to make it very obvious that you're trying to help out as much as possible, to kind of so the other humans at the table can identify who you are.
I don't agree with that, because
Really?
the first game I was making it very obvious that I was helping, and everybody's like, "He's a Cylon."
I don't know if
we just don't trust you ever. We just don't
Well,
trust
I
you.
understand that.
It's the whole beard thing.
It's the weird beard.
But I think it's. I mean, if you're gonna play as the humans and really try to connect early on in the game, it's trying to make it as obvious as I'm trying to help here, guys. I'm doing everything I can on my side, because the Cylons, once they do reveal themselves, have a lot of power, and you need to be able to work together. And I mean, if you're working together from the very beginning, that'll help a lot.
It doesn't. There's not
rather than trying to stab each other in the back.
There's not a whole lot of really great boosts for the humans in the game. There's a lot against you going on. I mean, you got the Cylons attacking you. You have the ship explode, and you have your counter that keeps counting down. In any way that they get to 0, you're done. I mean, there's a lot going against you, and like the humans can boost themselves by 1 usually. And it's also by luck that you boost yourself.
Yeah, it's because it's a roll.
You're really always working yourself down the whole way through. My go as a Cylon, I was pretty much undetected the whole time, and I just didn't help anybody. I didn't do anything. I just kind of sat there and just collected my stuff, and that eventually we just ended up winning. We just ended up winning because the fact, or as a Cylon, because that nothing helps the humans.
Now, when you're playing the Cylon, there's 2 major roles here. The President, which has quorum cards that gives him a lot of ability during the game, and the Admiral, that when you jump to another planet, they can look at the deck and decide, where am I going to go? If the Cylons are savvy enough, they can convince others, or just by force, vote themselves into the presidency or to the admiralship.
We're looking at you, Andrew.
Vote themselves into
Admiral and President.
vote themselves to the admiralcy and the presidency, and you really have a lot of power at that point because you kind of hose the humans.
Especially if you do like Andrew did, not reveal yourself. I mean, he keeps those roles then, and then he can just.
We obviously knew you were
halt.
Cylon, but you still didn't reveal yourself.
No,
so
the first time when I tried to get the presidency, I was not a Cylon, and everybody was still against me.
Yeah,
so that's not.
Yeah, that's just you being a jerk, and you want to.
Now, as a human, I have to say the goal of the human, and it's obvious because it's a trader's game, is to try to eliminate people who are not traders and work with them, because unless you're working, this is not like some trader games like Resistance where you can kind of work by yourself and still get through not quite knowing who you're working with. But in this game, if you can not eliminate anyone as a possible trader,
then
you can't get anywhere.
That's what I was trying to get at.
Work
early on, you really need to identify those other humans as best possible. What kind of makes this hard, and we didn't really talk about this too much, is at the beginning of the game you get the Cylon, not Cylon cards. And then after you get to 4
distance traveled
when you jump, you deal out another set of these cards. So even if you weren't a Cylon in the beginning, you may become a Cylon later. So you could have it like our last game, where there were no Cylons for the first, 2 jumps to get us to that 4.
I'm not quite sure somebody was aware of that.
Yeah, there might have been a question about that. So that's really hard at that point to identify who's good and who's bad, because you're always assuming there's a bad guy out there. So that kind of makes it a little harder.
To go to that point with the whole humans are kind of the weakest character. I guess the weak play to the Cylons is you don't really know who the other Cylon is either. No. And that's kind of a weird point too. That versus your other kind of trader games, sometimes you kind of know who your teammate is. In this game, you have no idea. So you're a one-man army as a Cylon, and you're kind of almost like a one-man army as a human, anyways. Even though you're supposed to be the majority.
Yeah, you really have to play. You really have to pay attention to what people do, and make very logical decisions when you play cards or you take your turn.
How about we jump onto our likes and dislikes on this one?
I will start with my likes, and I'll start with likes because I like the movie. I like the television series. And to me, this was a buy-in for me because of that. If you watch the television series, and this is my personal opinion, it plays like the television series where people didn't know who the Cylons were. The Cylons didn't even know that they were Cylons, and it's revealed. It plays like the movie in that the humans are trying to get to Kobol, and it's always one disaster after another as they try to get there. And that the Cylons are always secretly trying to backstab the humans to stop them from their goal. So it plays a lot like the humans.
I'll jump on kind of with that thing. I watched some of the show, about the first season and a half, so I didn't get really far into it. But even with that, I felt like the theme that this game is trying to convey comes across really well. I mean, you don't know who to trust, you're trying to fight for your life. You're running out of food. You're running out of fuel. The morale is getting down on the population.
Who cares about morale? You're Cylon.
Oh, exactly. But you really feel like that's kind of going on as the player. I think even without knowing the story of Battlestar Galactica, you can still play it and get a sense of, feel like you are that role. You are the president. You are the pilot. You are the admiral.
Kind of. I watched like one episode, and having all the pictures and this, and I'm sure people connect with the characters, and this person did this in the show and this and that. It was a total withdrawal for me. I mean, it could have been anything. It could have been anybody's face. It could have been anything. And it just didn't have any extra effect for me that it's based on this show.
And I guess I don't necessarily think. What I was getting at is more of the theme behind it, like the story behind it. It didn't have to be Battlestar Galactica, but the story of humans trying to survive in space.
Right, and that's what I'm trying to do. Like, that makes sense, but it didn't have to be Battlestar.
No, it doesn't have to.
It doesn't have to. You're absolutely right.
And I think
it's the same.
And I kind of just added a little bit of flavor for me because I did like it, but you don't have to have watched it to understand the story.
And I think that's a benefit. You can come in not knowing anything about Battlestar Galactica, and I think get a feel for what the game's trying to convey.
I'll grab onto that too. It's just I've never watched the show. I've never really had I never wanted to really. But
hankering? Is that the word you're looking for?
I just really never wanted. It doesn't really have any effect on me. But the game mechanics, the way it plays out, and just I guess the players itself, like having it really geared towards the show, kind of is a withdrawal. I would have to agree on that, but it is really it's fun to play. I mean, it has a good fun quality to it because the mechanics are so good.
The one thing I have to say about the mechanics is we did go back to the rulebook a couple of times, but for the most part, the order of play is very simple. Move, even though it doesn't sound like it's move one of your actions, draw a card about how the humans are going to get screwed over,
Yeah.
resolve the card,
And move on.
and move on. That sounds like, well, that's all you do. Well, there's a lot of decision making and finger pointing between that, saying, I want to do this, but I think that Andrew is the Cylon. If I do this now and play my cards now, if Andrew's the Cylon, I'm screwed. So I have to pass this crisis, but I don't want to play all of my cards here because I think you're going to mess me over. So I'm only going to play some of my cards, knowing that if I don't play enough, we're going to fail. And so I have to trust, okay, I think you're human, so you're going to back me up on this. And he'll say, yeah, I'll back you up. And he's really the Cylon, you're not. He screws me over. You're telling me, oh, I can't do anything to help you. And so then all of a sudden we fail, and I'm like, what the heck happened?
This happened, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. This happened. I mean, it's very simple in the structure, in the order of play and the rules. But when it comes to making that decision of what you want to do, that's where the complication comes in.
I like the way in this game too that it's not all humans are equal. Even though you're on the same team, you have certain humans, like the president, for instance, the admiral, that have extra powers or abilities. You know, like you have some of the fantasy games where you have like, you know, different strength or different, you know, mental capacity or whatever, and that controls who you are. This game does it, I think, in a really neat way because it has this story behind it where you actually are playing a role too. Where it's the reason you have the extra powers because you're the president or because you're the admiral. And so even though you're all the humans on the same team, certain ones have a little extra power. And the trader mechanic, I think, plays into that because one of those people with extra power can be the trader. Like, I like just the way that all works together. And I think as a whole, I can say we like trader games, probably.
Oh, yeah.
As a group.
Definitely.
So I think just the way the trader mechanic plays into this and the different abilities of the characters, I really like that about it.
I think we spent maybe 10 minutes actually just discussing who's a traitor versus actually playing the game.
Yeah, we do a lot of finger pointing at our table.
And the final thing I'm going to say about that is the other thing about the special powers is it can change. In some games, if you're the president, you're the president. Or the most you can say is the president makes the decision about who's going to go on the mission, going to the resistance. You know, that's the only thing he gets to do. In this, the president actually has real power, and we can vote him out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I think that you're the Cylon, or if I'm the Cylon, and I don't want people to know that,
and I want to be the admiral and the president.
that's really effective.
Still,
for
again,
Cylon.
before I was a Cylon.
He's a Captain Jerk.
One dislike I have on the components is the fact that you have a player mat, but it's not really a player mat because there's no place to put anything. It's basically just a big player card.
Yeah, it's a card. Yeah.
And I know why it's so big because there's a lot of information on it, but if you cut that picture down, you could really...
Yeah, but then you can't figure out who you are.
And you can have the picture on there still, just make it smaller.
Cool.
I mean, basically they made a player mat that doesn't really serve a purpose.
I see what you're
That's what I'm kind of getting at.
I see what you're
If you're going to give me a player mat, give me a player mat.
You like want spaces for cards.
Yeah,
And
give me
things
stuff
like
like that. I mean, it seems like it's just they're saving space on mini cards, but then they're giving me this gigantic player card that doesn't do anything.
I can maybe respect that.
It's got words.
It does have words. Yeah.
A lot of words.
Why don't we jump into our reviews then? On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being amazing, 5 being all right, 1 being terrible. Andrew.
Ian.
You're going to pass it that way?
Back to you.
All right,
We're gonna
Let's
this
go
way.
reverse order.
Ian.
All right. You know, everything was there with the game. The mechanics were great. Again, I didn't watch the show. I didn't really care to watch the show. You know, I'd probably go about a 7.5 on this one. I don't usually do half scores, but you know, just as far as like the theme and where it goes, I care less. But the game was fun to play. Nothing's broken really about it. There's not a whole lot of looking back to the rules. But the trader mechanics, I love them, and it played very well for that.
I'm gonna give it an 8. I'm just a little bit higher than you, partially because I love the theme. I watched the movie.
And only the
TV
half point difference?
Yeah, it's
You're like, theme's only half.
No, theme's great. I give it an 8. The one thing that I think could be better is there are expansions that give you more rooms that would offer more interaction. It is limited the amount of rooms that you have here, and I think that could be better. And they made it better with expansions. So we're just playing the basic game. I like the trader mechanic. There's nothing wrong with it. I would play this again and again and again. It's not quite a 9 yet. It's just not quite there. I don't know exactly what it is that I'm missing. It's not quite a 9 yet, but I think it's a good heavy 8, and you should play it.
I'm going to join Pat. I'm going to give this an 8 too. I like it. Like I said, I've watched a little bit of Battlestar Galactica. I frankly would actually like to watch more. I have it on my Netflix queue. It's been sitting there forever. But I feel like the theme comes across really well, whether you know Battlestar Galactica or not. The downsides for me are the components are, I mean, most of them are very good. Like I said, I like the minis. Not a huge fan of the portrait player tokens or the big player cards. But what really brings it across for me is that trader mechanic. I think this game does the trader mechanic about as good as any game really could. And it's partially, I think, due to the fact that you don't know who the other trader is. So you can be playing this game, and you can become a trader halfway through. You can start the game as a trader, but you don't know who you're working with or who's working against you necessarily. And so I think that's one of the best ways I've seen the trader mechanic done. It doesn't make it too obvious. It just fits it well into the story and well into the theme, and the game just plays very smoothly. We didn't have to look at the rules. And I'm usually a stickler for having to go back to the rule book. It's a complicated game, but once you start playing it, it really just flows. So, solid 8 for me.
There you have it.
Oh, come on.
Just
bite the number.
Just go ahead and spike the review right now. Just
Come on.
2. Give me your number.
Yeah, 2. No, probably go with a 6.
No, that's actually higher than I thought you were going to. I'm impressed.
There's nothing really broken with the game. Besides the fact that I despise mini cards.
Is that like a -2 automatically for you?
It's at least
getting
half
there.
off,
It's getting there.
But there's a few things where I didn't feel as connected into the game as I wanted to, and I love trader games. It just didn't play out like we were playing, and I knew Pat was the trader because he finally revealed himself, and it's just like he didn't know that I was, and it just the back and the forth, and it just didn't work out quite the way I wanted it to. In terms of the way that I wanted to play and the way that I felt that it should play. But other than that, it's nothing broken. If you're into this theme and you're into Battlestar Galactica, I'd say check it out. It was fun. It just wasn't for me.
I guess I asked, is the Battlestar Galactica a negative for you?
A little bit, yeah.
I can understand that. It's a great trader game, but definitely the appeal to that is the crowd that says Battlestar Galactica. I want to be in on it.
Let's break for a second on this. You don't like Battlestar Galactica or whatever. You don't like Star Wars.
Do you like sci-fi?
What is your
Well, he liked Level 7, though.
He did.
I never said that I didn't like Star Wars. I just never watched it.
That is true.
Okay.
Leave your thoughts in the comments on that one right there.
Star Trek.
Yeah, I watched almost everything of Star Trek.
And you like it?
Yeah.
All right.
He's pretty tough on
That's
this.
legit. That's legit.
Let us know what you think about Andrew's taste in sci-fi in the comments, as well as what you think of this game, and then check us out next week.